Good morning, AO Southwest. My name is Paul Vassallo, your Director of Leadership Development. I have the one and only Jared Cleckner here with me today. We're very excited to hear from him, his story as an SGA with American Income, all the different roles that he and his wife, Jenny Cleckner, have played in the company, but also our organization. So we're very excited for you and your story, Jared, and thank you for your time. But we want to, of course, go into some housekeeping stuff. We are ramping up for a big finish for the production month of July. And so for all of you who have had the starts that you wanted, continue to finish strong and absolutely blow through the end of the month. And for all of those that maybe they didn't get the start that they want, here's the good news. You still got a whole week left to go out there and just do what you want to do and accomplish the month of July that you set out to accomplish. So let's make sure that we're focused on that, laser sharp focus on what it is that you want to do and that you need to achieve in order to reach your goal. But with the podcast, we're so excited about what Jared's message is going to be today. I got to spend some time with him talking about his story, and I cannot wait to get into it. But as always, we've got our Next Gen Leadership hashtag. We've got our hashtag Takeaway Tuesday. So make sure that you're leaving your best takeaway from what Jared's going over today in his story and the leadership message, to go ahead and utilize that in your training, your development, and let us know. Tag AIO World, tag Jared, tag myself, so we can make sure that we see it, so we can promote that and what you guys are all learning from this. So without taking any more of his time, we want to go ahead and jump into it. So Jared, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. And so we want to just kind of start from the top, for all of those that haven't gotten to know you as well over the course of their careers here, maybe to the newest agent, we want to introduce you to them. And so, of course, you've got a heck of a resume. You were an athlete growing up, born and raised in Phoenix.
Yep.
You had a background in all different sorts of industries and careers,
Yeah.
right? But you and your wife found AIL, Jenny 2006, you 2009, in 2009, and you've had tremendous success as a top MGA, RGA. You were an SGA in the company as well, and now you're an MGA with us. And so we're excited for you to be able to talk to us all about your story. I know I've got a ton of notes here that I'm going to continue to take. So we're going to jump right into it and let them get to know you a little bit better. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Okay, so from Phoenix, Arizona?
Yeah.
Okay, and you were an athlete growing up?
Born and raised athlete, yeah.
And so
very early on.
Just from the very beginning?
Just played sports. Not really even organized sports.
Yeah.
It was almost, parents get out of the house and don't come back till it's dark type situation. So I picked up sports and just played all the way until junior high, where it got organized for me.
And that was back in the days where they would allow us to play in the street, in the backyard, unsupervised and all that stuff. Now it's a little different. But so you actually were a multi-sport athlete growing up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so football, basketball, what else?
Football, basketball, main ones. I played volleyball, did track, doing decathlon, all sorts of events through track. About the only sport I did not play was baseball.
Okay. So jack of all trades, but more focused as you headed towards college, because you went to Glendale to play football?
Right.
Okay. How did that go? You're now in college, you're playing, sports?
It was good.
Yeah.
I had a blast. I mean, at that time, the junior college environment at that time with like Phoenix College, Mesa, Scottsdale, and Glendale, they were very highly competitive schools.
Correct.
Most of these individuals were all D1 athletes that, for one reason or another, almost like a transition school to D1.
Correct.
And so we were competing for national championships. It was a very talented team. It was fun.
Well, and that's where, for me, the junior college route, it allowed us to develop, right? Because not everybody, I was a small kid coming out of high school. So, that's where it was like that stomping grounds of like breeding these athletes to go on to that next.
Oh yeah, it was unreal. I remember because one of my, I'll say regrets, but weak points going to, because I was athletically, I was pretty good.
Yeah.
And so I didn't, unfortunately, spend as much time in like the weight room and doing some of the other things that a lot of individuals did, just because I was still better. I was still
relied on talent.
Amazing. Yeah. And even just going to that junior college, I remember the first day stepping into the weight room, I looked around, I'm like, and everyone thought I was the water boy probably. I mean, I was small. I was very small in comparison to everyone around me.
So did you start to take it seriously? Did you get after it in the gym? And
Yeah.
Okay. And then I found this out today. I'm very excited, U of A boy myself. So, so then you go down to U of A, but you're not playing sports anymore.
No, I didn't play sports. Had a chance to do some walk-on and do some things like that, but elected not to at that time. Had an injury that wasn't prevalent, but my knee it's still messed up now, but it just wasn't, for me at that time, the right thing to continue on. So I went down there for school.
And so you started in the engineering architecture path. Like most kids, it sounded like you didn't really know what you wanted to do.
Yeah, I thought I wanted to be an engineer, and then my dad was a general contractor, and I remember blueprints and stuff always being around the house. So then I was going to be an architect, and then that wasn't there, and then so with a lot of students end up falling back on like psychology or some, just trying to figure out a major just to get the degree, and it wasn't going anywhere. And I don't think that's the story for everybody. I'm so jealous and envious of kids that know their direction. I did not have that. I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Right. But school was a time for you to network and do all those things. I mean, you bartended through school. You had some fun. I mean, it's U of A.
We didn't call it networking back then. It was probably a different term, but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Basketball was big at U of A in 99, 2000. Those were some good teams.
Mike Bibby, Richard Jefferson, all those guys.
So you got to have, those were like the glory years coming out of the championship in 97, all that. So college was good.
Yep.
So, but that comes to an end, right? So now 2000 or so, you leave U of A, no degree. Right?
No degree, didn't graduate.
Now you head back home to Phoenix here.
Correct.
What was the what was the idea at that point? So okay, I'm leaving school. Now what?
Honestly, it was find a job, moving with some roommates, continue just kind of living life, having fun. I still didn't have a solid direction of what I really wanted.
You were 21 at this time?
Yeah, about 21.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And then, so you moved back to Phoenix. You found a job in the car industry?
We'll call it that. I was hired on, so I found a job. A friend of mine worked at a dealership and got me a job, got me an interview, got me hired onto there. And that only lasted 3 weeks, maybe a month, if I remember correctly. Because throughout the whole training process, it was not the environment that suited me. And I told you about it. I'll go ahead and say it again. But during the training process, the scenario that they're trying to train and really trying to get your mindset onto the sales portion of everything was they gave me a scenario, and the scenario was, if your grandmother came in and she already told you she's comfortable paying $350 a month for this vehicle. You can get this vehicle for $290 a month. You could get bottom line and get it for $294. What are you going to do? And, easy answer. Well, I'm going to do $290 a month for her, because she's my grandmother. And that's the wrong answer. We got to brainwash you. We got to get you over here. I'm like, I'm not doing that. Yeah. And so that did not last very long. I learned I was good at making friends. Yeah. People would come in, would drive the car, do this everything. I'd make friends with them. Then the closer would come in. A lot of people have probably been through this experience. They would just piss them off right from the get-go. And, and next thing you know, they're looking at me. I'm like, I have nothing to do with this. And so it wasn't for me. It was uncomfortable. Didn't like it. And so, bartending is sales, but that was my first kind of like sales attempt. And I didn't think it was for me.
So then after that, you went back to bartending, or were you in construction at that point?
No, after that, actually, so I needed to find another job. And then another friend of mine that I played with, his dad was a regional manager for an industrial construction company. They did a lot of hydroblasting and chemical recirculating. They worked at all the refineries and power plants all over the country. Okay. Ended up, they had some big jobs going on. They needed some help for a few weeks. So they're hiring temps, but they asked me and some other ones to join on. Next thing you know, 3 years later, I'm still working for the same company as one of their main leads and doing all this different construction. And it's actually pretty dangerous work looking back on it, some of the stuff that we had to deal with. And did that for 3 years until finally the decision was made in my life that I don't want to continue doing this. I don't want this to be long term. Yeah. And so maybe it's time to go back to school and really try to hone in and figure out what I want to do.
So your a temp position turned into 3 years. So it's amazing how fast time goes, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we discussed before, you were about 24 after those 3 years of construction and all of
23,
that, right?
yeah, something like that.
When you look at that kind of that time of your life, that season of life, right, from the beginning of college, playing ball at Glendale to end of U of A, and then the temp position turned permanent for 3 years. From about 18 to 24, would you feel like you had a lot of the direction, or like, okay, this is who I'm going to be, this is what it's going to look like, or were you kind of figuring it out?
Still figuring it out. At that time, we were working hard, but we were playing hard. We were having a lot of fun. I was enjoying life, but I had no long-term outlook at that point. I see some of the individuals, especially with some of the caliber of younger generation that comes through these doors, and the heads they have on their shoulders and the mindsets they have. I'm like, 28, 29, like, no, I'm 19. I'm like, if I could only think that way when I was 19. And so, I just wasn't there in my life.
And would you say that, because it seems like a lot of people are wrestling now younger with, from 19 to 22, 23 years old, like, who do I want to be, and trying to find this identity. But for me, I can only speak for myself, right? Sports was, that's what I was going to do. And so I didn't really have that question. But would you say that you were very caught up on trying to find this identity, or were you just going through the day to day and, like you said, working hard, playing hard, and just figuring out as it came, as opposed to having a plan?
Figuring out as I came, for sure.
What would you say to those people? Because a lot of them are trying to get life figured out by 20.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the one thing I wish I could go back and do, because it just to kind of, we'll get into a lot more of this, I'm sure, but obviously American Income has changed my life and my perception and my education and just everything. But if I could go back and not even necessarily knowing what I wanted to do, but if I could have had the mindset of just understanding, okay, what do I want?
Yeah.
What things do I want? To develop a game plan to do that. I wasn't even thinking that.
Yeah.
It didn't matter. I had enough I needed to survive. When I grew up, because I didn't grow up with being able to go spend a weekend at Catalina on the yacht, or being able to do different things that we've now done. It's those were never a thing. Yeah. Money. We didn't grow up poor, without, or anything like that, but it wasn't flowing. It wasn't just do whatever you want, money's no object type situation. So kind of transitioning into that, I was comfortable with that. I wasn't living a high lifestyle, but I wasn't hurting by any means. Yeah. I paycheck to paycheck for sure. Yeah. But I was comfortable.
Yeah. When at 24, we talked about you were dating a young lady who said what?
Basically, because at that time I was doing the construction. Yeah. And I'd be gone for 3-4 months at a time. Okay. Doing shutdown refineries in San Francisco or in Montana or wherever the case may be, because when they shut down, they do it for months at a time, and you're there 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, through the whole thing. And it was having a very hard strain on the relationship. And she's like, decision time, either figure out what you want to do, because she had a good head on her shoulders. She knew what she was going to school for and very directional on her career. You need to figure out what you want to do, come back to school. And so we talked about it. So I decided I left the company, which they wanted me to continue developing and starting to grow with them. But I wanted to do a different avenue and not travel kind of like that. I was getting tired of doing that. Yeah. And so then that's what I did. I ended up going back to bartending. And then I did actually enroll back in school, but I never went back to school. But the process started. But I ended up going back to bartending, and which a lot of people have done this, but bartending is such easy money. Yeah. If you don't need tons and tons and tons of it, but a pretty decent living that you can make if you're good at it.
So what's funny though is this is when you met your wife Jenny. Correct. At this season of your life. So correct. You end up taking the advice and going back to school from the girl you were dating to then only meet your wife, right?
It's funny you point that out. Yeah, so she basically led me to.
Yeah, one door closes, another door opens, right? And correct. So now you go back to bartending, you meet Jenny, but then that it wasn't like you guys didn't start dating right away. You guys were friends at the beginning?
Yeah, I mean, we were both in relationships at that time. We met, but became very good friends. Yeah. she is, as far as work is concerned, very meticulous, very good. She, is always the best at what she does, no matter what. I had the same type of mindset. I was, took a lot of pride in my work. I worked hard, and so we got along very well. She makes a joke about it, but all of her friends, when we were just friends, when they'd meet, they always called me the guy version of her, in a way, which I don't know if I agree with that, but is that we were always close, as friends. And then it was, I think approximately 2 years later is when things had changed in both of our lives to where next thing you know, we get together. Yeah. And it was literally just like that. Yeah. We had our first kiss, and it was almost, I'm not, she tells it better than I do because it was one of those instant things that we just knew. Yeah. And thank God we knew, because she was pregnant 2 weeks later. Yeah. And that's how we started our family. We did things a little backwards, but it was amazing. But we'd already been best friends for 2 years. Yeah. And so
you guys, she's now the GM with this company that you're working with. You've moved up into management. Now you guys have a family and this life together and all of this. Your daughter was born in 2005. Yes. Right. So now, how old are you in 2005? Like 25, 26?
I gotta do the math. Yeah, 26.
Okay, so 26 years old in 2005, probably still maybe feel like you don't have it all figured out, because now you've got a young family, and it's like, okay, are we going to be in the restaurant business forever? What does this look like for us? And so did you guys have those conversations about the future and what it was going to look like?
We had not immediate conversation, but we realized, we knew working in the restaurant, it's been good to us. Yeah. It had been nice. But the one thing about it is, especially as a manager, or even whatever the case may be, but it's every holiday, every Mother's Day, every Father's Day, Valentine's Day, you're working. And if you're closing, you're there till 2 a.m. If and your shifts can always be all over the place. And if you're a manager, someone doesn't show up, it's on you. You got to jump behind there and do everything. We decided we didn't want to do that, raising a family. That's not what we wanted our family dynamic to look at. So that's when we started looking.
So now fast forward, it's 2006. So Jenny was the GM of a restaurant, correct, at that point, and so you're managing as well. You guys decided that she was going to transition first.
Yeah, I mean, having our first child, we're a young family. We were at least smart enough to know that we just can't both jump ship and try to figure it out. We got to have a little bit more detailed plan going through things. So she started looking around, and she found American Income. She went on, and the thing about it is, she went on, I believe, multiple interviews. And in my mind, I might be a little biased, but she's qualified to do whatever she wants to do. Correct. But she came home and said, "This is what I'm doing." She was excited about it. She wanted to do it. I don't think she could answer even a lot of my questions as far as how she got paid, everything, but she knew this is what she wanted. Yeah. And you've met her, and so it wasn't like I could say yes or no. It was more of I'm fantastic. I'm here to support you. I don't let her to know what to do. She lets me know. But and so then she started. I was skeptical.
So you were the skeptical partner at the time?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's 100% commission. Yeah. Which in hindsight, so is bartending. So is so many things. You look back on it and you think your mindset is just so shut off to what's capable. But 100% commission. There's this, there's that, and there, all these things she's trying to explain to me, and I'm like, and I don't know if I've ever told her this or not, but before, in my mind at that time, it was more of the long. Because it's not like I could tell her no, that doesn't exist. But it was, I'll let you give this a try for 3 months and then go find a real job type situation. I hope she doesn't hear this, but that's kind of what was going through my mind at that time. Well, she studies just amazingly, and that's why when I hear about newer agents talk about difficulties of studying, she studied like just diligently, and I helped her study for a week on end, just nonstop, just dove into it. Passed her test. Next thing you know, she's going through training. Her first paycheck was more than what she made in a month as a general manager of a restaurant.
As a general manager.
As a general
manager.
Not
an assistant manager.
Correct.
So what's going through your head now? Because young family, talking about transition, talking about leaving what you guys are good at, right? Mm-hmm. Arguably, you guys could say you're very good at it. What you know, new field, new industry, commission, all of these things that, you know, most would say, hey, red flag, or like slow down, you know, dip a toe in, all that stuff. But now Jenny, being Jenny, right? She comes out, she's number 4 in the entire company. Her first month. She's made more money in her first month than you guys maybe made, or that maybe she made
combined
in a quarter or something like that, right?
Probably could have stayed at home at that point.
Yeah. So what's going through your guys' head? Like, how is this conversation going now?
Well, it's going great. She's excited. I'm excited because now I, have the opportunity to kind of figure out what I want to do.
Yeah.
The skeptic side of me, I'm like, is it legal? What is she doing? I mean, it was very confusing to see her making that amount of money, which is more than we've ever made.
Yeah.
And then so when I transitioned down, I started doing other things and got out of the management business and did a couple other ventures for the next few years, still trying to figure out what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And the conversation from 2006 to when I started in 2009, there was never a conversation of me working with American Income.
Yeah.
It just wasn't a thing. And honestly, and kind of looking back on it, I think I was fearful of that because even though she was doing amazing, she's Jenny. She's not. We are not the same. She is very good at her craft and what she does.
Yeah.
I never saw myself as that. I was more of a hands-on, tools building type individual.
Mm-hmm.
And the thought of both of us being on a commission, even though still being blind to what's possible and how well everything's going for her, both of us being commissioned, that's too scary. That's too much of a risk, as I'll put in air quotes or whatever. But, and so it wasn't until about in 2009, a friend of ours was starting with American Income, and at that point, I'm still trying to figure out, and I think throughout conversation, I'm trying to figure out what I want to do or different opportunities. And our friend of ours is the one that just said, I don't understand why you don't work with American Income with Jenny. I mean, I think you'd be good. And I look at Jenny, she's like, you'd probably be good at it. And conversation happened over, I think probably a glass or two of wine. And the next thing you know, a couple coffees, sure. And next thing you know, I'm going to get my license.
Yeah. So you went through this time though, she transitioned in 2006. Mm-hmm. You leave the restaurant industry, but now you're kind of doing your own thing, the entrepreneurial side of things.
Yeah.
You tried mortgages and then you went into custom woodwork, correct?
Correct.
But that was at the time, for all the really young people, they don't remember maybe the recession of 2008, 9, 10 and all of that. Correct. But the mortgage industry got really hit.
Well, I did mortgage for a short stint. I caught the tail end of the real big boom.
Yeah.
And all my friends that are very successful in that, I caught the tail end where I wasn't that successful in that. And that's when I went to custom woodworking and cabinetry.
Yeah.
I worked for a shop it was less than a year before me and 2 other partners found each other and we started our own company.
Correct.
Did great. And that was an awesome, really fun time for me. We were making really good money. We all had our specialty. One of the partners was amazing at networking and drumming up business like nobody else.
Yeah.
Brett was the jack of all trades as far as building. He could do just about anything there was. And then I was the stable builder in the shop. We all complement each other very well. We had contracts out for 4, 5, 6 months at a time because we were so busy.
Yeah.
And in 2008, end of 2008, 2009-ish, when the recession hit, it didn't affect us at first because everything we were doing was very high-end. We had a very high-end clientele. Correct. Most of them were like, yeah, we're okay. All of a sudden, it wasn't getting better. And then everyone dropped all contracts and like, we're holding off on everything. We're going to see what happens with this economy.
So the recession hit in 8 and 9 and it started to impact the business. But for Jenny, how did that affect her and the sales process and everything that was going on for her?
She maintained, was always consistent. That's one thing that she always verbalized as far as what she does is it's recession proof.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what the economy's doing as far as our niche market and who she serves and her clientele. Correct. In fact, the way she explained it a lot of the times was even when recession is or the economy is bad, that's when our clients and our niche market actually falls back on these plans and these programs to feel secure and to feel protected because they're not doing it financially.
Correct.
And the sad reality is most of our niche market that we deal with, they are paycheck to paycheck, regardless of what the economy is doing.
Correct.
Our clientele is not staring at the stock market. They're
Correct.
just trying to figure out how to get to next week, to next week, to next week, to next week.
Yeah.
And so, it's recession proof. She's never dipped and once said, the economy's not good right now. That's why I had an off week.
Correct.
Never happens.
So how does that make you view what she's doing? Because now you're doing very well in business. You and your two partners are helping high-end families, and obviously there's money in that. But then overnight, you could say things change, and so now you're looking at transitioning to work with her.
Correct.
What's your mindset like when you see the stability from her? And
when that's the unstable job.
Correct.
Right.
Because it's commission.
That's when it's slowly starting to register to me that, me having the custom cabinetry and the woodworking, that's our base. That's our safety net. That's not stable. So safe. That's not the stability. She's the stability and she's the rock.
Yeah.
And, not 100% at that point, but that it slowly starts to sink in that this is where it's at.
It's funny how our minds work.
Oh,
right?
It's completely. Going back, and people have asked me before. I've interviewed, countless number of amazing candidates, and always a lot of the conversation is, I'm either nervous about commission, or I don't think I can do full-time commission right now, or I need to have a base. I need to have these certain things, and then if I'm ever asked, like, do you understand what I mean? I'm like, I get what you're coming from, because I was at one point in my life, similar. Yeah. However, if I could go back from day one, from the very first job I ever had as a busboy at a restaurant in the local strip mall, I wouldn't do it any other way. I would never work anything other than 100% commission.
And it's funny what perspective teaches you, and wisdom being gained, and then also having someone to kind of pave the path for you ultimately, because now fast forward 2009.
Yeah, it's really not fair. I had a lead, a lead individual really showing the light. Without Jenny doing what she did, we wouldn't be having this conversation. So
you fast forward 2009, your wife's crushing it, right? Yep. She's leader in the office and production. She's killing it, right? Yep. So now she's training you.
Yeah.
So top agent.
Well, in fact, at that point, she stepped out of management.
Okay.
Because she wanted to spend more time at home, and because at that time it was a different structure. Like here, as a leader, you can have the structure that you need as long as it translate to what your business needs.
Correct.
And you can be very creative on what you need to get done. It's amazing. Then it wasn't so much. It was this, and that is. There's no gray, black, white, or whatever you want to call it. This is what it is. And so she stepped out because that's not what was making her happy. Yeah. Especially with the young children that we had. But she trained me because she wanted to control that asset of it, of making sure it was done correctly.
Correct. So your wife trains you, but now you're coming up in this industry that is foreign to you.
Correct.
You're now in true sales, right? Not that the cabinetry wasn't and all of that, but
it's
you're selling a service that ultimately someone's coming to you for because it's high end and all of that, right? Correct. You're now going out to go really help these families, but you also have this person at home that is arguably the number one person in the office, right?
Oh, I don't think arguably, but
so you've got a different perspective that maybe a new agent wouldn't have, because you now have, I don't want to say shadow negatively, but your wife was it, right? So you now come into a situation to where you're now, so you're going to be as good as her, right? You're all of that. So how did that go?
Yeah, you got to remember, I'm competitive.
Yeah.
I do not like to lose. Monopoly is banned in our house. We're not allowed to play it anymore. I mean, things like that.
Yeah.
It's, oh God, man. And so, but I mean, I'm competitive. I don't, and my fear was, I already knew how amazing she was.
Yeah.
Because her being there as long as she was, I met a lot of people at the office, been to a lot of their events and things like that. I knew how amazing she was. Me coming in my mind, the expectation is that I'm going to be Jenny number 2. And I wasn't confident that that was the case because I know myself, and as much as we're alike, there's a lot of differences. And I know that's not me. I don't have that capability and charisma that she has to walk in and rainbows and sunshine just start flying everywhere, and things is magic, and it's an amazing quality that very, very, very few individuals have naturally. That wasn't me. I'm more of a logistical. I'm a fact, and number type, a detailed individual. It's not just the quality to be able to speak like she can speak. So my fear was that I was going to walk in, Jenny's this and that, and her husband is just a flop, just falls on his face, and just a huge disappointment. And that was a huge fear, and that's why I studied and did my script as hard as I did, and did everything as hard as I did, because I didn't want that to happen. So
ultimately you come to this fork in the road, right? Because with this fear, you could either just say, okay, well, I'm actually too scared, I'm not going to even try. Or you could go all in and double down on the activity and effort. And you mentioned earlier, you were that hustle guy. You were the activity guy, right?
I had to.
And so how many appointments a day did you have scheduled in order to really help to guarantee your success? How many appointments did you have on the books?
I'd do 14, 15. I mean,
so how many sets a day were you ultimately?
I had available. Because, and it was funny, at that time we had the phone rooms. And everyone had a phone, like an office phone, and did their dialing and stacks of leads and paper. The resources that everyone has here, and we can touch on that later, but it not like it used to be. And so everyone would be just dialing, and I'd look at Jenny, and I called through them 3 times. And call them again. We got to get in touch with people. And so I would leave the booking room sessions, and I'd have anywhere between 13 and 16 appointments on a daily basis.
Wow.
And everyone, I'm like, well, and I didn't know any better. I'm like, well, how many do you have? 4. And I'm like, what? I'm like, holy crap. But that individual only needed 4 appointments, and they needed more than that. Granted, I'm not saying 4 appointments is by any stretch of the imagination the road to success, but I was working twice as hard and that I could see than everyone around me, just to get the same result.
Correct.
Which, in hindsight, though, the most amazing part that I look back on that is, by working twice as hard, I gained twice the knowledge, twice as fast, twice the experience. I got my 100 and 200 presentations done 3 times faster than everyone else.
Correct.
And it gave me the knowledge and the catapult to move forward.
Well, because you said something very powerful earlier today when we were going over everything. You said the race to 200.
Correct.
Why do you feel like that's such an important number in a new agent's career?
You could spend a lot of time on this, actually, and but to try to summarize it as quick as possible, the biggest thing is experience. And Elia said it best at one point, to where without that experience, I have nothing to teach you. If you only do 50 presentations, you can't learn anything from me. I have nothing to teach you. I have no data on you. I have nothing to go off of.
Correct.
And so, and things have, of course, adapted to today. But at that point, it was 100 presentations. It was, you bring in your summary sheets, because we used to write out everything on paper and for the presentation, and you bring them in so we can review them. And regardless, I don't care if you had 1 sale, if it were all no sales, whatever the case may be, is to learn from those 100 presentations, to basically see almost every type of scenario, married with kids, married no kids, single with kids, retired,
correct,
whatever the case may be. You get all this exposure. Now we have something to teach you, and something to learn off of and go off of. And that was huge. And the unspoken reality on that was, and the saying was, the faster you get to 100, the more successful and the longer career you're going to have here. The longer it takes you to get to 100, the shorter your career will be. And it's hard to validate that on paper, but I look back on it, and it's a fact. Everyone that's still around, it's still the case.
Still true today.
It's still the case, because once you have data and once you understand what you're looking at, whether you're the worst agent, which I wasn't that good. I was pretty rough, actually, or the best agent. Once you have data, you can actually formulate a game plan. And that's been going forward throughout, when I was in SGA, My whole deal is you have to know numbers. We have to know numbers. That's very, very data driven.
Yeah.
Because that way that builds a plan.
Correct.
It tells me how to treat you as opposed to you, to know what we have to focus on to actually make you more successful.
Because you can't coach everyone the same.
Cannot.
Right. And with understanding the data, you can have a different conversation.
100%.
And that's what so often being in this position of leadership development, you talk to different people. They're at different places in their life. They're at different stages of their career.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing that I think you would agree with this is that I've found common is the meaning that people attach to the success of if it's a sale or not versus the meaning attached to doing the work, right? Because like you said, it's a race to 200
Mm-hmm.
because you're going to acquire the skills necessary to create a career. Whereas how many agents have you seen come out the gates firing, right? Just crush it the first week, 2 weeks, first month, but they end up not being here because the result or the meaning, the success is attached to the sale and the result, as opposed to, man, I've planted my flag. I'm going to work my butt off. And I've actually had a good week. Why? Because I did 20 presentations.
Correct.
Did you make any sales? I have no idea, but I did 20 presentations.
Exactly.
Right? Versus the meaning so often, I feel like, because people come here a little bit broken, right? Man, my boss, I didn't get the opportunity I wanted. I didn't have the growth that I wanted. I'm not making the money that I want to. Whatever it is, they've been kicked around, right? They haven't had that opportunity yet to create what they've wanted. But now they come here, they're like, holy cow, I can make something of this. But unfortunately, I think the meaning of success is so much attached to either the sale, the enrollment, or the money.
No, you're right.
That when that's all that they see, as opposed to the race to 200.
And no, you're 100% right. And I've seen it a million times where someone does come out the gate, and whether it be just fortunate that they ran into those clients, or they were actually that good at their presentation, or just good at talking to someone, whatever the case may be, what happens, not all the time, but a lot of times, next thing you know, then the first point they face failure or adversity, they're out. They can't handle it because all of a sudden they think it's supposed to be X, Y, Z. When failing forward for me was the most important thing that could have happened, because it gave me the experience, and I wasn't afraid of failure. That was growing me.
Correct.
And then those successes were that much more sweet when they were happening.
Correct.
And it was huge, and so over the years, of course, I used to look at all the sayings on the walls and all the, they didn't have tweets back then, but I mean, it was all these different messages that you get. And what is unbelievable to me now is how much truth is in some of those. A lot of them, in fact, and a lot of them will register with you individually, and each person's different. But the one that really hit home with me, one of them, is, and it was a saying, and it's been, and I don't know the original, so I can't really quote it, but it's not mine. And it's something to the effect of, if you truly understand what the difference between a master and an apprentice is, and then the next line is, well, the master has failed more times than the apprentice has ever even attempted. And there's so much truth to that, in my opinion. And it's not a measure of the sale that is, we're in a business, we're results driven, and
100%.
That's how we pay the bills.
100%.
If you can figure out how to work and actually implement what's being taught and trained, the reason I became an SGA is not because I developed a new presentation, or I developed a new script, or developed some new group to work with. I did exactly what I was taught and trained to do, and I just did it as hard and as fast as I could.
You just actually executed on it.
Correct.
Right. And that's where I think some people in this business struggle when they're talented, right? Because they don't work as hard. And I've been a victim to that. When like, Jenny could get away.
High school. I did the same thing.
Jenny could get away with probably doing 7 to 10 presentations in a week, and you're over here trying to kill yourself to do 20, 25 just to keep up.
I still can't outright her.
Right. One day we're going to make it happen. But, and so that's where it just, you said something pretty powerful though, of you started to have some success, but then you sat down with the manager at one point in your career.
Right. And that kind of
because
goes
you were overcomplicating things and all of this. Walk us through that of why you started to develop the work ethic into understanding all of these different things, but truly what you need to do to be successful that you learn.
And so kind of like what I just said, as far as, you know, just doing what I was taught and trained to do, not getting too creative, not getting overcomplicated. And so when I talked to earlier, I had to work extremely hard. There was a few things that happened in my career that really were hard lessons to learn. Mm-hmm. And I'll go over them quickly. One, well, my first presentation that I ever did with Jenny watching as a trainer, I sold it. Annihilated. It was horrible. Why she bought, I'm still curious. I don't really know. But I was on presentation. I was on the script. Yeah. But it was the wrong script. I shouldn't even be presenting what I was presenting anyway. But she ended up selling it because it was the script. Yeah. Then fast forward, I get released. I think it was the first 3 presentations I do, I sold every single one of them. And so, I'm thinking, oh, this is fantastic. But then next thing you know, no. Yeah. Next thing you know, I'm getting extremely hungry. I want to learn everything. I want to know all the products. I want to know our competitors' products. I want to know the technicalities of exactly when this product will expire, when it has to be converted, what conversion means. I mean, I'm becoming a beast for knowledge, and I'm really starting to impress myself on how knowledgeable I am. All right, and so then I'm going to presentations and I'm changing the script, adding so much to it to where I'm like, I'm gonna sound like the most professional person in the world, and the results just started declining, and I cannot figure it out. And then, like you said, one of the managers like, you need to do a presentation. I want to see it. Couldn't go in the field with me, which is fine. So come to the office, do a presentation, and in my head, I'm thinking, I'm gonna blow their socks off. They're gonna be so impressed how smart I am. It's gonna be amazing. And so I go in and I do this presentation, and I'm laying down numbers that I don't even remember. And as soon as I'm done, you do where you close, you set down your pen back in the day. I say like, well, that was amazing. I've been here for, I can't remember 8 years, or whatever the case may be. I have no idea what you just said. And there was a silence. Yeah. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? Like, I don't even know what we're talking about at this point. I mean, that's the most confusing thing I've ever seen in my life. And I'm like floored. I'm like, I was waiting to hear all this praise. Yeah. And it's some mystery of why I'm not doing well. And like, where's your script? You need to get back to basics. You're overcomplicating this. You're doing this, and it was in a positive way. Yeah. It wasn't negative. I'm my own worst critic, but they were like, you need to get back to this. You need to get back to this. Correct. Our client's job is not to be an insurance professional. That's ours. So Correct. We have to explain it in a way that shows a sense of urgency, but just go the basic route to where they understand it. The fact that you know all that is going to be very valuable to you in your career, but that's not how you can present it. Correct. Okay, so, go through my folders and find my script that I'd put away. Mistake number 1. Go back to that. Go back to the next thing you know, out the gates. Start flying. Start doing amazing. Start really building, and that was it was almost a huge relief, because as much as I enjoyed learning more, like I was, and I continued to do, just keep it simple. Correct. What we do, they've been doing it for 60 years, and it works really well every single time. And what amazes me, and you hear it and you meet some of these individuals that have amazing success, and what do they always say? Your script, your presentation, your script. You practice, you practice, you practice. Right, and outwork. Yeah, and it helps to work extremely hard. Yeah, and it's such a valuable lesson, because I know that I was a victim of that. I overcomplicate. I like to think that I'm decently smart, and I wanted the knowledge, and I hear you speaking of me, but it's so true of how you broke it down. Allow them to make the decision based off of what their needs are, not because of all these products and the wows and this and that and the technicalities of it. You need to know that at some point in your career, just so you sharpen your axe at all times. 100%. But for you to be effective, the Tasmanian devil is the one who kicks up the most dust, right? Right? I mean, and that's ultimately who's going to win here. Yeah. And when we see the leaderboards, we're like, wow, how did they write 22,000 in one presentation? They didn't. They did it in 30 presentations. Right. You technically, by your numbers, if you did 32, you would probably write about 15 to 20,000. They're just outworking. And you'll see a lot of times too, just off of numbers, but you get that person that understands the work ethic side of things.
Yeah.
And you can map out, and they're going to be consistent.
Yeah.
And for me, it was always 5 weeks worth of data. That was my baseline out in Kansas City.
Yeah.
So I could tell them exactly what needs to go, and it's accurate. It's amazing how predictable this business is.
Correct.
If you know what you're looking at.
Correct.
And with certain individuals, they didn't have to be 50% closers or even a 35% closer, but they knew their numbers. But then there's that 1 week where all the stars align and they're doing what they normally do. They do 20 presentations, and that 20 presentations only gets them their 7 sales to make 4,000 ALP or whatever the case may be, whatever their averages are. Then that 1 week they come out the gates, and next thing you know, they have a 75% close ratio. They write 15 deals. Their average ALP goes up to 1,000. Next thing you know, they just made $9,000 in one check.
Yeah.
And that's amazing. But they're consistent. That those things will happen.
Correct.
But once you know the numbers, there's no limit to what you can do.
Yeah. When it's like when I sat down with Dustin Dunbar, and he, for 41 weeks in a row or 41 months in a row, maintained bonus for whatever the structure was. 41 months in a row.
It's unreal.
And I talked to Dustin Vinnicamp about it. He's like, well, ask him why I wasn't on for 42. And I was like, okay. And he's like, oh, the bonus structure changed. So, it's just, but consistency, right?
It's funny.
Being consistent but that's just life.
It is.
Right? Were you good at walking the first time? No, you were really bad. Were you good at tying your shoe the first time?
No.
Those bunny ears frustrated me like crazy, right? So it's just life, why we expect the success in our career and to just be overnight. It's weird, it's not life.
Look at all the best of anyone in any industry. They don't practice less when they get better. They practice more. The best golfers, the best basketball players, they shoot more free throws. They hit more balls out of the driving range.
Correct.
It's not I'm the best. I don't got to practice anymore.
Correct.
One of the stories that was told to me, and I don't know how we're on time or all that, but I mean, one that always registered to me, and again I've had so many mentors that I've been blessed with, but the story of the lumberjack. Have you heard this?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so this young man gets a job on as a lumberjack, and they have this contract to cut down all these trees. And the guy's like, okay, I'm going to give you a shot. I expect this, and this, and this. You're going to work your butt off. He's like, okay. So he goes out there, works extremely hard, and shows his results. And the guy's like, very well, nice job. Next week goes out, does even a little bit better. And the guy's like, excellent, great job. And goes out the third week, does about the same. There's only so much you can do. The next week he goes out and he actually does less. He starts going backwards now. And so he's like, this is not acceptable. I'm not going to be that type of employee or someone working for myself. And goes out the next week, works more hours, works twice as hard, still has less results. Goes out the next week, it's even worse. He's working 100 hours a week now. Working as hard as he possibly can, almost killing himself, still has less results. It's getting worse and worse and worse. And so the foreman calls him into his office and he says, I just want to talk to you. He's like, before he even begins talking, he's like, I don't understand what's going on. I'm working longer days. I'm not taking any breaks. I'm working as hard as I possibly can. And it just seems to be getting worse and worse and worse and worse. I don't get it. And he looked at me and said, well, when's the last time you sharpened your axe? And then from that point on, he understood. And the way that translates to me for our business is your presentation doesn't get set down.
Correct.
Honestly, I don't believe anyone from Mark Nielsen to Kevin Apasamy or anyone would tell you that they are 100% perfect on every aspect of everything on that presentation. Yeah. There's always room for growth, and there's always room to keep practicing it.
Correct.
The best agents that I've ever met throughout my career in American Income, it's amazing. I've been very lucky to meet so many of them.
Correct.
And one of the best things that I do when because you always want to ask them, you want to pick their brain.
Yeah.
And what's the secret bullet? What's the magic sauce? What do you got for me? And I remember Max Kasem when I was in the pool in Scottsdale with him. I asked him, I'm like, your presentation's got to be different. It's got to be amazing. It's got to be this. And his response was, no, your presentation's probably better than mine, to be honest with you. The only difference is I do it more times and I practice it nonstop. I do a presentation before I hit the field.
Yep.
Every time. When's our worst presentation? Usually the first one of the day. Might as well get one out of the way. Practice it on the way home. Just nonstop working your
100%.
presentation. You'd be amazed at the results.
Be a pro.
Be a pro.
Be a pro, right? And don't let your first presentation be your first presentation.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
And for what technology though allows us to do now, we have the voice memos on our phones.
Oh yeah.
You can. So for me, when I was studying my script, that was my workout music.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because I had to get it right. And so where can I devote an hour of my time? I stopped lifting weights and I did cardio for 3 weeks. I had to get it right. I mean, I went from commission to commission.
Mine was my travel. So
Yeah.
anytime I was in the car, no more music, no more radio, no nothing.
100%.
And so this is before, the Bluetooth and all
Yeah.
that stuff. And so people thought I was crazy because I'm, using hand gestures and doing my presentation.
In your
and
car.
Nonstop in my car. In fact, it took years to actually listen to the radio because I was just so used to not listening and just doing my presentation.
You're the guy you look over at the stoplight and you're like, what's wrong with this guy?
crazy.
Like, who is he talking
Crazy
to?
over here.
Right?
It's a full-blown conversation.
But that's also why you've had the success. So then let's talk about that because now, Jenny steps out of management. At first, you weren't excited about management, but then there was a circumstance where you became a manager.
Mm-hmm.
And so now you're a manager. You embrace it. You start having success. All of these things, all the while you still have a young family, right?
Correct.
Now, do you have 2 babies at this point? When you went MGA the first time and, all the transitions, the new SGA and...
Yes, I believe our second daughter was just born.
Okay, so...
Well, right around there.
Yeah,
Either way,
so,
yeah.
but, we're talking young family,
Mm-hmm.
lots of things going on, right? Any excuse in the world, right?
Oh, yeah.
For that person, any excuse, right?
Correct.
But now you have a change of leadership.
Mm-hmm.
So often, right, when the things that happen outside of our control, it gives us an excuse as to why, right? Okay, well, this happened. And sometimes we allow it, people close to us, we actually buy it. Like, oh, that's legitimate, Jared.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I understand.
Oh, yeah.
But you didn't allow the change of leadership for the new SGA to deter you. You became a top MGA again, top RGA again. And then you went and took an interview that you just wanted to flirt. You wanted to find out, right?
No, I to be honest.
So talk to everybody about that.
Well, I have to kind of say it a little bit because I think that goes to talk a little bit of adversity and challenges. But when we had a change of leadership, I actually stepped out of management.
Yeah.
Like you said, whatever all the parameters that were happening at that time, I thought it wasn't a good fit. So I gave up. I built an entire team, gave it all away. New leadership comes in. They have different ideas. They have a different vision. They have a different path of what they do. They basically inspire me to do it again. Start from ground zero, give up everything.
Yep.
No problem. Let's do it again.
Okay.
Build it all up. And then next thing you know, a lot of factors going into it. I'm not sure what their conversations are, but I started getting, or at least creating some type of attention to where they invited me to go and interview to become an SGA.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And now you go. You tell the wife what? Well, we're not moving, but I'm gonna go interview, or like what at home? What was the conversation? Like, honey, let's at least go.
So I go home and I'm like, hey, and of course, this is condensed in a cloudy recollection, but I'm like, they're talking to me about possibly becoming an SGA. I'm excited, it's proud,
Yeah.
It's
You're
nice
being
to be recognized for what
your
you're doing.
success. Absolutely.
And not exact close, but I believe Jenny said, "Yeah, that's not happening." And just not even
Jenny
a
wouldn't say
conversation.
that.
Let's do a pro and con list. No, that's not happening. And I'm like, "What do you?"
Wait,
we
didn't even talk about
Well,
this.
to be honest with you, at that time, and because she didn't want to move,
Yeah.
we just had new leadership. They're not going anywhere, and so I was at that point where I didn't want to move either, and I really did not want to be an SGA. I didn't want to leave Arizona. My whole family's from Arizona. Everything is in
Roots
Arizona.
were here.
And the kids were starting school. I don't want to uproot them from school. So many different things. And so my whole thing. Well, I honestly, I still wanted to go interview for it, or at least go through the interview process. The curiosity. I wanted the knowledge. I wanted to know more about the position. There were so many questions that I had about that opportunity. Not really truly interested in taking it. Obviously, the interview at that time was about 3 days. They flew us out to McKinney, and there was me and I believe 8 other candidates at that time from throughout the country, and one was from New Zealand, I believe. We going through the project. You're learning all this information. It's very exciting. The benefits. It wasn't because I know everyone understands what I'm saying. You know, everyone talks about the amazing capabilities and this and that. This was more structured as these are the black and white numbers of what we're dealing with. We're dealing with big boy numbers now.
Yeah.
And all these, I'm like, this is unreal. And so as the interviews wrapped up, we had a lunch, and they basically conclude everything and let us know we'll be in touch in about 7 to 14 days, basically, and we'll let you know what we decided, what our thoughts are. Fair enough, you know. And so I go home, and I get on the flight, and you know, you get off the plane, you turn your phone on, and it's blowing up.
Correct. And
my current SGA at that time was like, "What did you say? What did you do? What's going on?" Because he didn't want me to leave initially, and next thing you know, I find out just from back channels, like they're offering you a position. They want you to move to Kansas City.
So they said 7 to 14 days. You just landed.
Yeah, I hadn't been, because I went straight from the office to the airport.
So you just touched down from Texas to Phoenix, and you've already got an offer?
Correct.
They must have liked you.
Well, it was flattering to say the least. It was. I hadn't even got a chance to talk to Jenny about
how it went.
The interview itself in real detail. So I'm on the phone with them, and they basically asked the question, and I said, I need a minute. I'm gonna have to get back to you on this. Is a huge decision, and I already know what Jenny's thought process is, and so I'm thinking, I'm excited about it. How am I going to sell Jenny on this deal? But basically the conversation was easy. You know, our kids were still young enough to where if we were going to move or transition, now would be the time.
Correct.
If they get any older, I'm not going to want to do that type situation. And my agency that I was running in Phoenix at the time was doing very, very well, but it wasn't so. I mean, you got some of these amazing individuals on American Income that have RGA ships that are doing 200,000.
Yeah.
That's hard, because in my situation, for me to walk away, I had to start from zero again. And give up everything I just built for that opportunity.
Yeah.
Because I didn't get to take anyone other than Jenny with me if I was going to go. And so.
And you take her by default, right? She's your wife.
Tag along, you know. I mean,
I have to take her
right?
with me?
No.
You know?
But she wasn't field training.
Of course.
And so, you know, that's the thing. You take 2 key individuals that can help you field train while you're
Correct.
getting this off the ground. That didn't happen. So. As it comes, and we decided, we sat down, and like, if we're gonna do this, we need to do it now, and we need to commit to it. We need to run at it, and that's what we decided to do. And so, within 30 days, packed up, moved everything. I flew out there first.
Yeah.
Didn't even have an office.
Yeah.
I flew out there for 24 hours to find an office and a place to live. Came back, got everything packed up, and moved everything out.
And we didn't get into this, but Jenny's from that area.
She is. She actually grew up in Northwest Missouri.
Home, right? But she wasn't thrilled about being home.
No,
immediately.
So that was the biggest thing, because, like, you know, as we talk about our childhood days, our experiences, it's always most time for me is always the fun times.
Yeah.
And so as she described her childhood and growing up in a college town and all the fun that she had, it sounded like the most amazing time that she ever had in her life.
Yeah.
And then so we're moving out there, and she's like, and she's miserable, and I'm like, I thought this was, you know, the amazing time or whatever. It's like, well, yeah, I got out. You know, I wanted to stay out. I didn't want the small town. If she had the opportunity, she'd live in New York City.
Gotcha.
Myself, I could live on 1,000 acres in the middle of nowhere and be perfectly happy.
Correct.
So Phoenix is kind of that happy median.
Yeah.
I think so.
So you guys got out there in 2013.
Yes.
You're there for about 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
Is it fair to say that business and financially you guys did things that you hadn't done before?
Oh yeah.
And so now it's time to now the chapter, the page turns, however you want to say, and now you're coming back. And so over the course of being an SGA and conventions and all of these things, you've got to know Altig and Elia and Dustin and all of these people. But now Phoenix is different because it's not under the old leadership that you left.
Correct.
It's now under Dustin Camp's leadership and Altig. So with that, you're now coming home to a different situation than what you left.
100%.
So, tell everybody a little bit about that, because they don't understand the Stone Ages.
They don't.
They don't understand, because when you
didn't
grow up
in it,
in just what you know, that's all you
Correct.
know, right? So talk to everybody about what was working with American Income like versus what's working with Altig like.
You said it best. And I don't believe anyone's taking anything for granted intentionally, but without knowing what the rest of the company is doing compared to what the resources and tools that are given and invested in by Elia, Rick, and Dustin, it's hard to understand. Because growing up on that side of it, basically as you transition here and you find out all the resources and the tools and things that Altig has and Vini Camp has that the rest of the company doesn't, the rest of the company truly is working with both hands tied behind their back. And they're making it work, and they're doing phenomenal, and they're doing great.
Right.
But the true idea of their mentality to make things much more efficient, much more profitable, so an individual can truly live opportunity unlimited and still have that work-life balance, it is unbelievable. Yeah. It is unbelievable.
So hindsight's always beautiful, right? Because it perspective, wisdom, all of these things. But when you look back on, Jenny's been here for 13 odd years. She's $1 million producer. You've been in SGA, you've been top MGA, RGA. As a couple, you guys have had the ability to really design a life and customize your life, which when you look back on your career prior to in the restaurant industry and construction, have you thought about where you guys' life would be if you guys stayed on the track that you were and you didn't make that decision in 2006 because you guys truly have been able to create a life. Jenny stepped out of management, to be mom and still produce the way she wanted to, and you had the opportunity to run a territory and create a life.
And don't get me wrong, she just wasn't a stay-at-home mom by
of course
any means. If she's going to watch this, I feel I have to really explain that. She works extremely hard still.
Of course. But she had the flexibility to create that, right?
Correct.
And you guys got to do that as a couple, say, hey, this is what's important to us. This is how we're going to execute and use this tool of American Income to our advantage. How would you speak to somebody, what does that mean for your guys' family to be able to customize that and create that?
Well, it's interesting you ask. I've never actually thought about what our life would be if we did not transition to American Income. I'm going to think about that today probably now. My imagination's going to get a hold of me, but there's no way it would be what it is today. There's just no way. And in fact, working hard in the beginning, looking back, I wish I would have worked harder, to be honest with you. I worked hard. I worked 7 days a week. I did so many different things. I sacrificed a lot in the beginning. But the results were there, and you could see the progress, and you could see that opportunity. The biggest thing is now is really understanding, and sometimes for some people, they get it right away. They got it and they go for it, and they know exactly what they want and they can see it. Others like myself, I had to see it in progression. I had to be proven that this was capable. You can't just tell me, hey, if you do X, Y, Z, this will happen. Okay, well, I have to be proven that. Correct. I got to do it and find the results. And it's happened during that time frame. And one of the things that I have thought about, because all of us, we're all guilty of our own imagination. Unfortunately, our own worst enemy is those inches between our ears. And so it's for me, there's even been a point where when we moved back to Phoenix, even during that whole transition, because it happened pretty fast when we moved back to Phoenix, there was, and literally this conversation in my head probably only took about 10 minutes. But there was that point where I'm like, okay, I've had every single position with this company. I've done everything. Is it time for a new challenge? Is it time for me to see what else? Because this is the most successful I've ever been. Am I capable of being successful somewhere else, or running a company doing X, Y, Z? Anyway. As I had that thought process, I started thinking about interviewing. And the funniest thing is where I'm like, okay, so how's this interview going to go? Everything looks great. You have great, amazing leadership. You've ran this, you've done amazing. and I turn around and say, this sounds fantastic. I'd like to help you guys' organization. However, I'm going to create my own schedule. I'm pretty much going to take off whenever I want for any vacations, as many vacations as I want, and I'll get my job done. But there's really not a whole lot that you're going to be able to do to control me on certain avenues.
Correct.
I may or may not show up to the office today, depending on if I have my daughter's, volleyball game.
Yeah.
And I'm like, nobody would hire me.
And by the way, I'm very expensive too.
And I'm very expensive.
I'm very expensive.
It's
you
gonna
probably
be,
can't afford me.
This is going to be a tough thing for you to match. But if you do, I can guarantee you, who would hire me?
Right.
I would never even consider it, because I started thinking about it. I'm like, I just looked at our schedule. We have our online schedule, and I'm like, we're gone here, we're gone here. This is this, and this. I'm like, this is not feasible for a normal human being.
And you're 40.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm not going to ask what Jenny's age is, but with that, you guys,
Smart.
Obviously you're young, right?
Yeah.
Your kids, so you guys have been able to design a life, and in less than 3 years, you guys are going to have residual income well into the hundreds of thousands of dollars a year.
Mm-hmm.
That by 42 years old,
mm-hmm.
that's not normal,
No.
right? And so, what's next for the Cleck, as I say, Mr. Jared Cleckner?
Honestly,
what's next?
My head's always turning.
Yeah.
The wheels are always spinning, and I think about that constantly. And one of my biggest things that I want to do, and I think I'm always looking for different ways to do it, is to help.
Mm-hmm.
And the beautiful thing about this organization is by sharing and helping and developing and trying to figure out how to make someone else successful.
Yeah.
It makes you successful. And that's one of my main things, is how can I actually be of value?
Yeah.
Because and I'm not going to lie, I've become accustomed to certain things. I worked extremely hard in the beginning to enjoy what I'm able to do now.
Correct.
I won't apologize for that, but at the same time, there's got to be a way I can add value to make sure everyone can get the same thing.
Correct.
There's not one company that I've ever seen that is willing to share knowledge, experience, and ways to succeed like this organization.
Yeah.
You find a sales organization where you have a Mark Nielsen that is just blowing things out of the water, or a David Carpenter blowing things out of the water, and they don't share why they're blowing it out of the water. They keep it to themselves.
Yeah.
I'm going to be the top dog for as long as I can.
Correct.
Because I've got this whatever I figured out.
Yeah.
However complicated the recipe might be, that's not it. It's completely transparent to where everybody wins if everybody wins.
Correct.
And so if I've got something that works and is successful, I'm going to give it to everybody I possibly can, and that's what everyone in this company does. I've never seen anything like it. It's amazing.
It makes a very not only successful work environment, but it's team, right? And it's the unity and one heartbeat. As athletes, you talk about one heartbeat, right? And when we're all locked in
Mm-hmm.
on one mission, help as many families as possible on our way to 100 million. Man, only the sky's the limit, right? And so, in closing, obviously we've talked about a lot today, and this is, I think, a little bit longer than most because
I apologize.
You've had. I wanted it to be because of your story, and to be able to help people understand that. And you did all of this outside of Altic.
Yes.
And so, you need to pat yourself on the back with that, because not to say that it's given and it's easy or anything with Altic, but when you talk about the resources and the amount of money that they invest in us,
correct,
and what Dustin Vini Camp invest in us, and all of these people, we do have a different opportunity, and you are a true testament to that. 100%. And so what you've been able to accomplish is just hands down amazing. And so I wanted people to know you and know that.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. But with that, what would you say in closing? When you're talking to the newest person, and when we're talking about leadership, we're talking about overcoming adversity and challenges and successes as well. What would you say to that newest person that your journey you could really take from?
One, I would say, enjoy your successes. But strive to get better. Don't get complacent. Complacency is the worst thing you can possibly do.
Yeah.
But outside of that, I would really say whatever challenges or adversities that you think you're going through, or not even think, that's not fair to say, that you are going through.
Yeah.
And however detrimental that is in your mindset at that point, what I would really hope everyone understands is that you are not alone. You're not unique.
Yeah.
In having challenges. and having things that do not go your way.
Yeah.
Talk to someone, because you see someone that is amazingly successful with this company, and you think, oh, everything just must have been just a bed of roses
Stars
to get
align.
him where they were.
Yeah.
I guarantee it's not the case.
Correct.
I can go over a lot of time of the failures and the challenges and holes that I had to dig out of to get to where I'm at today.
Yeah.
It made me better as an agent, as a person, as a family member, as everything, doing those things.
Yeah.
But it's because I had people that I could relate to that went through the same thing. If you feel like you're alone in a situation, you'll become your own worst victim, and you just go through a downward spiral.
Correct.
Talk to someone. Even if you think they're out of touch, most of the time they're not.
Yeah.
I think one of the most pivotal transitions in my career is when I got to start going to some of the leadership schools that AIL had, not even the amazing ones that Alta has that are 10 times better, but you got to meet the most successful people in the company. And the first thing I realized was they do not walk on water.
Mm-hmm. They're just like me and you.
And to be honest with you, I better than them in my own competitive mindset. They've got nothing that I don't. What's my excuse?
Correct.
And the difference is they at some point in their career, they took their challenges, they accepted them, but they didn't let them bring them down.
Correct.
They got knocked down, they went right back up.
Yeah.
So when you're having challenges, believe me, I've been there. If you ever want to come talk to me, we can talk through it, because challenges are going to be there. You're not going to, if you're the one person out of this entire company's history that just has roses all the way through your career, I want to hang out with you for sure, but it's probably not going to happen. You're going to hit challenges, but talk to someone about it, and because believe me, people have been in your shoes.
Well, and I that just resonates with me, because getting to know your story a little bit more. Obviously, athletic background. You got to learn, especially football in the summer in Phoenix. You learn adversity, right?
Actually,
you learn how to push.
It's illegal to do the things that they did to us.
Very much so. The game's changed just since I've been out. So you go to school, but you don't graduate, right? So now, what does that mean for me? What does that mean for my future? Now you're in the restaurant industry. You meet the love of your life, best friends at first, family, but now young family. We're kids essentially, right? With a kid now, and now transition. But you guys had a plan. You talked about what it's going to look like. But then what we talk about so often now in our agency is, because we have a leader that does cast such a vision, it helps us cast our vision, right? And I don't know the old leadership, but when you talk about the fact that you and Jenny, she was #1 for 3 years, and you guys didn't once talk about working together. When we're talking about being able to cast a vision. Now you guys come together in 2009, and it's like this force, right, to be reckoned with. And the challenge is starting over from scratch multiple times, moving your family when they're young enough to know, right? The girls are in school now. They have friends. They have
it's hard on them.
Life, right? Well, and it's probably hard on you guys as well, right? So your story is one of I think just overcoming life, right, and adversity, and understanding perseverance of. When you have somebody that's in your corner that supports you and can do it with you, man, anything's possible. And so I appreciate you coming on today to talk to the team, because when we talk about putting the work in, man, 13 to 14 appointments on the books. Our agents, man, we're talking about 8, 9, 10, right? So we need Jared Cleckner to go in and run the phone booking room here. So teach them the ways. But thank you very much for being on the podcast today to talk about your story. So I'm excited for you all to take away everything that I was able to take away. So remember, go ahead and make sure you share and tag Jared, tag the agency, and all the one-liners, the success stories, what you took away the most. #takeawaytuesday, #nextgenleadership, and we'll see you all soon on the next podcast for the Next Gen Leadership.